Hello and welcome back to another Bad Movie Reviews review hosted by your favourite NPC nightclub attendant from any John Wick film. And it is me, Ben from Down Under, and I am reviewing none other than Ballerina, which is the latest side piece of a John Wick film, as they'd say. Um, However, the film is specifically titled Ballerina, but it also has the marketing use of from the world of John Wick Ballerina, which I think is just for marketing and financial purposes to try and bring people in. But overall, this is a film I didn't really know what to expect. It is directed by Len Wiseman, who, if you don't know, has previously directed Total Recall back from 2012, and I think that's his last feature film. And then he did Die Hard 4 and a few of the Underworld films. But the rumor is for this film actually is the original cut, which Chad Stahelski saw. He was quite upset with it and basically did reshoots of this. And if that is the case, I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed that he shot a lot of sequences in Prague. You can tell who's directed by which director, and I think that John Wick creative control is now fully in Stahelski's hands instead of Lionsgate. But overall, I just want to put that out there that there is potential that a lot of this was reshot due to how weak the original film might have been, which you can kind of tell just purely from how choppy it is at times. But overall, I had fun with it. It is definitely a John Wick film in the way you'd expect. So at the end of the day, I'll get into the nitty gritty of it. But first of all, the cast, you've obviously got Ana de Armas, who plays Eve. Now, she is fantastic in this film. She fully embodies that role and the physicality that you expect with a film set in the John Wick universe. And I think she is something, if continued, if they make a sequel or if they continue her in John Wick films, I don't know if they're making any more of them, but she's something and a character I would love to see again. You've also got, obviously, it's been advertised with Keanu reprising his role. You've also got Ian McShane reprising. You have got Lance Reddick reprising his role, who's obviously sadly passed away. So I'm not sure if this was his final film or not. But there are a few other casts in here. You've got Norman Reedus. Overall, the supporting cast is somewhat, in my opinion, underutilized. They are great actors, however, not in it as much. But the thing with this film, which is somewhat of a hard film to talk about, obviously, with the fact that there are the potential reshoots, it is somewhat messy. And it is unfortunate because there is under the lining the feeling of like a really, really fun and good movie. And while this film is fun, I don't think it has the writing and the plot to kind of go along with it. And the reality is, not really many of the John Wick films, maybe bar the first one, have this phenomenal just plot. This film itself is a very, very cliche revenge flick. It doesn't rejuvenate the genre by any means, but the what this film does really well is what we expect. The action scenes at times, there's specific action scenes. There's a few in particular: flamethrower, plates, ice skates. These really, really cool action sequences. However, the one thing I think this film is missing is the cinematographer of the John Wick films. I don't think it shot nearly as, when you think of John Wick Parabellum or whatever it was called, the fifth one, you think of the top down Dragon's Breath shotgun scene, and you think of like the stair sequence, and it's always shot so incredibly clean, and it has a very distinct visual style, which this film has at times, but I think it just lacks that pop and that color, like that beautiful color grading that all the John Wick films have. The plot's pretty much, as I was saying, the basic as it gets. The villain itself is somewhat of a letdown, and I think it really is missing Dan Leuston, I think the cinematographer's name is. But the film does serve well into the world that Chad's created and that Keanu's built. And it is obviously hard to measure that up to these John Wick films, where there's obviously 5 of them now, and they've really built that up. With obviously the first one coming out, there was probably no distinction that there would be anymore. But they've obviously become these hugely successful films and a great action franchise. This film does what it needs to do really well. It's just at times really weirdly edited, and I think that's due to the fact that there is potentially the reshot factor, and the fact that there are potentially two helms, two like different directors at the helms, and you can feel it at times because it does feel like there's almost two different movies within this. It's definitely got its shortcomings in terms of the narrative aspect. The one thing that I was probably missing from this film that I feel like it never really got into is the ballerina aspect, like the academy aspect. It's one of the things I was really interested in. Obviously, there's been hintings at it in the John Wick films, and then with coming to this, I thought it would really, really dig into that, but it was very much surface level, bare bones part of the plot, really, which I think most people might not care about. For me, it was something that I was really intrigued to see if it would get into. It obviously didn't. Maybe that's something that the sequel, if there is ever one, can get into. I'd love to see that. But overall, look, I had a good time with it. It's hard to live up to, obviously, the John Wick franchise and the John Wick films. It is something that I think introduces something new, which could be really, really fun. This is a good start. It has left me with a few shortcomings: overall plot, editing, all that's kind of, the writing at times as well. There are some really, really fun action sequences, really, really well shot, and some of the locations and the set designs are beautiful. I think it is missing that like cinematographer and that specific John Wick look, but I guess obviously it's trying to venture away from that. But when you've got such a high ceiling of how the film is looking and how it's shot, when you don't get that, I feel like it's some kind of, missing piece to it. But overall, look, I had a fun time with it. Would I happily see these characters again? I'd happily see Ana de Armas as Eve in a John Wick film or in a sequel. I'd happily do it again. I just think it's one of those hard things that it's always going to be compared to its connected film, which is the reality of whenever there's, a side narrative in the world of these existent worlds. That's kind of the game you play, right? So I'd love to know what other people think about it. I'd love to know, because I do think people will either love it or hate it. I really do think it's quite a decisive film, but in that regard, if the action sequences make them happy in or not. But if you have seen the film, I'd love to know. Comment below, let me know what you think. If you do like our review, give it a thumbs up, as it does mean a lot, and subscribe for more. We'll see you next time.